So Sam Altman team over at OpenAI, once again, state of the art, leading the charge with their O3 model, which is causing a bunch of buzz. And why? It is this pursuit of what's called artificial general intelligence. We're at like narrow intelligence with a lot of these things. And artificial general intelligence is that next step forward towards that artificial superintelligence where things are just fully autonomous. They can do everything under the sun that's better than 99.99% of humans. And that's where a lot of individuals are both scared and optimistic at the same time of where things are going to go. Now, we're over here, narrow AI. Things can do certain tasks very well. Think of like Stockfish and how it operates better than just about anybody could possibly do in the world of chess. But general AI, the ability to do a number of things at zero shot pretty much, which means that there's not much training that needs to be done or instruction. It's more abstract reasoning. And that's what's causing a buzz. And it's all about this ARC prize. Francois Cholet, I believe, hopefully I pronounce his name correctly, created this test, if we go back to the homepage, of benchmarking. Some sort of domain agnostic, abstract reasoning test where anything, some sort of artificial intelligence model can look at shapes, for example, and infer what the output should be. And these are the more 7x7 simplified. So I can see here, based on these two examples, that no matter what, if I go over on this side, it's going to require these light blue squares. Oh, I screwed that up. So if I fix those, did it again. And then dark blue in the open corners. And so if I submit solution, sure, I got that right. And then there's any number of ones like you can see here. Okay, anything red's going to have on the corners yellow. It's going to be a cross for orange. And then you can see that if there's not anything, that there's just not going to be anything around it, and so on and so forth. And it gets more and more complex, and none of the puzzles are supposed to be the same, which is where any artificial intelligence model that is reading this and looking at it and studying it has difficulty, because there's no training within any specific domain that any sort of reasoning model could try to rely upon. That's what is really interesting. So published is here. Looking at how the reasoning models that OpenAI released, you can see here the performance on it. 7.8%. I even think they were down here at 0% for GPT-3, if I do remember correctly, and just the large leap in performance. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that they're tuned. They were trained on publicly available ARC data sets that are specific to this, which you can be like, okay, if it was trained on it, perhaps that isn't necessarily something that we should really care about. But at issue is that even if it's trained on a large amount of these public data sets, the ability to have the reasoning as many different combinations of these different tests. You can see here, okay, red's got to be 3 in a row, vertical or horizontal, and then there's light blue squares, and then all the different colors. It's difficult. For us as humans looking at it, quite simple. For artificial intelligence, it's very difficult. Now, the one thing, I kind of want to throw this. I don't like this headline. Artificial general intelligence is not here, not even close. And I think everybody agrees on that. But just the massive breakthrough in performance is what is really interesting here. Even the New Scientist says, no, still not AGI. Does this achievement show that AGI has been reached? No, the ARC Challenge organizers have specifically said, which they do, Francois on his website says, they do not consider beating this competition benchmark to be an indicator of having achieved AGI. The O3 model also failed to solve more than 100 visual puzzle tasks, even when OpenAI applied a very large amount of computing power toward the unofficial score, yada, yada, so on and so forth. So even the title, I would say, O3 model aced a test of reasoning, more clickbait than actually what happened. If I think of something acing a test, I'm thinking 100%, no issues. But there's a lot of nuances and things that happen on the back end. But it's still, you can see what's trending besides OpenAI, of course, and with their, PR press releases, that everyone's excited about this. The ability to show that an agnostic abstract reasoning problem is trending towards large leaps in resolving it is interesting. And there is $1 million cash prize if you can figure this out. And as Francois has said on his Twitter, no, they're not going to get the prize. It is just really, really cool to see. There's some posts. So if I go to bookmarks that I have, I believe, Francois has a great thread analyzing exactly what happened. So today, OpenAI announced O3, its next-gen reasoning model. We've worked with OpenAI, so they actually worked with the test, enabling them to train it on public available data sets. And look at the cost. Look at the cost of compute here. On the low compute mode for this test, $20 per task. 87.5% in high compute node. Okay, great. Thousands of dollars per task. It's a very expensive, but it's not brute. That's the thing that's interesting here. The resolutions outputted by the O3 model in the reasoning, it wasn't just brute force figuring things out. There was actual ability to see how it was performing and resolving some of the puzzles that it successfully performed. So this AGI, Francois says, while the new model is very impressive and represents a big milestone on the way towards AGI, it's not AGI. And again, resolution of the ARC task does not in itself lead to the idea that something is AGI. It is just a very interesting and fair test for something that, again, is not domain specific and could lend someone to believe that we're leaning towards AGI. Does this mean the ARC prize competition is beaten? Nope. Said no, absolutely not. What does this mean for future of AGI research? For me, the main open question is where the scaling bottlenecks for the technique behind O3 are going to be. If human annotated COT data is a major bottleneck, for instance, capabilities would start to plateau quickly, like they did for LLMs. If the only bottleneck is a test time search, we will see continued scaling in the future. 2025 will be the year of open source reproduction of these techniques. Not really something that's going to enable OpenAI models towards AGI or resolution because they're closed source, but anybody else that's up and coming creating these reasoning models and having them open source will allow teams to build and get closer and closer to this ARC grand prize. So we're not there yet. We're not at AGI. I don't even think 2025 is going to be AGI. What do I know? Just my assumption, just based on how these models, where things are trending. And the bottleneck is the availability of compute. I mean, thousands of dollars in high compute mode to resolve some of these issues of the ARC analysis is insane. Who's going to fund it, and where are they going to get the compute nodes to do the performance of what's needed to resolve this puzzle? I don't see it. I think something has to happen as far as optimizing performance to compute and power cost. And I don't see that being resolved in 2025, but prove me wrong. These big brains are just exponentially smarter than what I have. And I just look forward. It's just really cool. O3 didn't solve AGI, but it is a massive leap forward.